Alright, it's kind of a big weekend for movies.
Yeah.
All three of these are kind of a big deal in one way or another.
Something for everyone this week, quite literally.
Yeah, they're really doing the whole, let's just split up the box office this week. Even though we already kind of know where it's going to go. Still, at least it'll be shuffled around a little bit.
Yeah, other things are going to make money too.
But let's just go ahead and start with that. Because it's... yeah, 50 Shades Darker. The sequel to 50 Shades of Grey that we got this time 2 years ago.
Yep.
Which was just fascinating. So, I think my thoughts on that were pretty clear. They're not too much different from everybody else's. Sam Taylor Wood, or, Sam Taylor Johnson now. I can never get either one of their names right ever since they got married. Directed that one. And that was like the only compliment I had for that one was... It was actually surprisingly well shot for the kind of movie it was. But this time around, they have replaced the director. The director now is James Foley, the guy that directed Fear. It's like the studio was like, okay, we know what this is. Let's bring the director of Fear in, and he can show us what it really is. Well, no, it's just... No, they didn't take that approach. It's still...
They could have, and it would have been a much better movie.
He's got such a weird filmography. He also did Glengarry Glen Ross, and now he's doing this. He did some House of Cards. He did some really shitty movies like Competence. But this is where he's at now.
Perfect Stranger.
So, yeah, go figure. He makes thrillers. Of course he'd be put on this. That's what it should be anyway, but whatever.
He's directing the other one, too.
Oh, really? Oh, so he's Bill Condoning it?
Yep.
Okay. So, speaking of Twilight, it is worth noting that, yeah, it's kind of hard to approach these movies in a way that's serious when you're not part of its fan base, because one of the first things that I kept hearing was that this one was more lighthearted and fun than the other one. Well, my first thought is, that's an immediate title fail, for starters.
Yeah.
It's like, good job naming it, if that's the way you're gonna go. But yeah, even despite that, there's still the same problems that the first one kind of had. You know, where a normal person would probably look at Christian Grey as a potential serial killer, as opposed to a romantic love interest that we all... hope we win the heart of, or whatever. Okay. So, I was telling you, it was not unlike, when we see those movies where it's like, you're watching it with an audience and you're kind of starting to wonder, who are these people? Where did they come from? And what is their thought process in their normal day-to-day lives? Because the way these movies play out, which is really their biggest issue... like, if they approach their subject matter in, like, a way that's not so dismissive of what it is, that we might have something here. But no, it's still the case of, you see them, you know, she goes to have coffee with her boss, and Grey finds out about this. So he shows up, and he makes a big scene. And he's like, you know, who are you? And he's like, I'm the boyfriend. Well, for starters, they haven't really reached that point in the story quite yet.
Nope.
But Grey's kind of jumping the gun here, as he often does. But we let it go, because then they're leaving. And he says, she's trying to say the boss is innocent. And his response is, no, he just wants what's mine. And in the audience, the women in the audience, this produced... giddy giggles.
Yeah, I know. I heard it too.
There's something horribly wrong here. I don't know if it was... Oh, okay. It can be forgiven if it was uncomfortable laughter. That would make sense.
No.
But you can tell that people like this character because of this.
Yeah.
The target fan base does.
I don't understand why.
I'm not even sure how to articulate... that's not blatantly obvious why this is weird to me. But okay. And it's all brought to us by, as I was telling you earlier, acting that makes the Twilight movies look like fences.
Good Lord.
It's that extreme.
I really wish that would be put on the back of something somewhere.
And they got two Oscar winners to be in this. They already had Marcia Gay Harden, and now they've brought Kim Basinger in as well. Yeah, I mean, I know Kim Basinger will do... I think her last movie before this was Grudge Match. Oh, so I guess it doesn't matter too much to her. But still, you're an Oscar winner for life. And then when you do stuff like this, that's going to come back. It has to. So there's that. And speaking of Kim Basinger, another problem this movie has that was really kind of something the first one didn't really have any problems with was, wow, they want to put a lot of stories into this one movie.
Yeah, definitely.
We got 2 hours to go through this. But that's the problem. Is that it's okay if you're going to be 2 hours long as you've got, stuff to fill that in that's interesting enough. But the problem is that this movie wants to have plot after plot after plot after plot. And every single one of those plots, what happens is they're introduced, and then they just vanish, and then they kind of come back towards the end and end up not going anywhere. That's in just, when all else fails, sex. That's how this movie's pieced together.
Yep.
So that's annoying, because they kind of set up something like it's going to be a big deal, and then it just vanishes, and then it doesn't even mean anything in the long run anyway. Or it's setting up the sequel. It's probably going to be as underwhelming there as it was here. So, and then there's stuff like the helicopter, where I'm not even sure what the purpose was. Because if you're watching this, I'm sure you know what happens by now. Like, if you haven't seen it yet, I'm sure you've read the book and you know it inside out and all that stuff. So, there is something. They try to give a reason for the helicopter thing. To where it made him rethink his life and made him rethink the decisions and all that and made him come to this big conclusion. Well, there's one problem. He came to that conclusion long before this fucking helicopter scene.
Yep.
So, I don't know why that was even there. Unless they just really wanted to make the movie 2 hours. And when they say they're trying to make it more lighthearted and stuff like that, it's like Christian Grey is still a possessive psychopath. It's just hilarious because she's trying to make him normal. He's in the kitchen cutting vegetables and shit. They laugh across the room when the cork of a wine bottle squeaks.
And other people in the theater were laughing.
Hilarity? Question mark?
I don't understand this at all.
I don't know. And it's got all this really disjointed dialogue that's meant to kind of be, like, playful and spontaneous. It's just embarrassing. And the deliveries from these performances certainly aren't helping it. Like, if you had, like, let's go back to that. Let's say you have the cast of Fences or something doing this dialogue. It'd still be embarrassing. Anybody whose dialogue comes out of this mouth needs to be slapped.
I don't know. Denzel Washington could make that work, probably.
What was it? Something about fuckery.
Kinky.
Yeah. They were trying to top the stupidity of the line on 50 Shades of Fucked Up. With, like, 3 different ones here. And one is just as embarrassing as the other. But then, and another problem is... this was a big problem with the first one too, but I mean, they really amplify it here. You know what, honestly, one of the biggest absolute problems is with these movies? Her goddamn character. Because, well, for starters, they really try to make her sound all intellectual.
Yeah. By
making her, like, drop the names of books and authors only by their last name, because it makes her sound smart, or whatever. But the thing, you know what it reminded me of? It came off extremely fake and was reminding me of, remember the moment in The Squid and the Whale? When Jesse Eisenberg's character was talking about the metamorphosis with his girlfriend, but he hadn't actually read it, so he just kept saying, yes, it's very Kafkaesque over and over and over again to sound like you knew what he was talking about.
Yes.
That's what she sounds like. But we're supposed to take it like she's she knows about all the stuff she's talking about.
She hasn't read half of the books that she is living with. That's for sure.
And then she's just constantly flip-flopping back and forth between "you're an insane psychopath" and "please love me." And you could say, yeah, you can dismiss that as a character flaw. You could say that's her as a character and what her character is, to where one minute she wants this and another minute she wants this, and that's her character that she doesn't know. But honestly, you can also say it's really flawed writing, and that seems a lot more likely when you look at everything around her.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then there's this whole thing about it's supposedly covering all this taboo territory you don't typically see in movies that get franchises and make this much money. Yeah. Well, as you were saying, you said you felt desensitized to all the sex scenes.
Totally.
Because it's just like, seriously, honest to God, I know it's an easy thing to say. I know you can just throw it away saying it's softcore porn and stuff like that. But no, that's not just a throwaway comment. This movie is structured like a porn.
Yeah.
Really bad acting, really bad dialogue, really, really tiny storylines that are only leading to the sex scenes.
And if you strip away all the kink from the movie, it's very basic.
But that's the thing, though. Even this kink you speak of, it's really like I feel like I just said this about another movie, but I can't for the life of me think of what it is. But this movie feels like it was written by a teenager that just discovered dirty things on the internet. And wants to incorporate all the... Like, let's say a kid sees something dirty on the internet, and then he goes to his friends on the playground and says, "Hey guys, you'll never guess what I learned about anal beads." And then, yeah, that's what the movie feels like. It's very... It sets up a deep subject matter, but it only wants to be surface level dirty with it. It wants you to know it knows about this stuff, and then just leave it at that. And then it eventually leads to one of those... It's now an age-old cliche, the getting off in public in secrecy scene. Like, you go back to, say, I'm sure it goes farther back, but like, Isla Fisher trying to give Vince Vaughn a handjob in Wedding Crashers at the dinner table.
Right.
Or if anybody remembers this movie, remember the vibrating panties and The Ugly Truth?
Yeah.
With Katherine Heigl? All that stuff. And it's played for comedic value. Only this movie does it with anal beads. Because a movie has never explored this before. This movie thinks the American Pie movies never existed, I guess. Yeah. This is new and taboo, people. Look out. Shield your eyes, please. No, really, you'd be doing yourself a favor. Through the whole 2 hours, shield your eyes. And yeah, going on that as well, these scenes that are supposed to be sexy. To the first one's credit, yeah, some of the sex scenes in the first movie are steamy. Sure. Here, though... They might be something here if they weren't, number one, they didn't feel cheap and porny. And secondly, the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack is supposed to add to the sexiness that's supposedly going on here.
Every single time you get that saxophone music.
I was gonna say, it's that cheesy porn music just with lyrics.
Yeah, exactly. And recognizable names on the soundtrack, of course.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I was hearing it and I was like, I'll bet people know these people. I don't know these people.
You know Taylor Swift?
Was she in there?
Yeah, that's the big song. Her and Zayn, the guy that left One Direction.
Which scene was that?
It doesn't matter. Seriously.
Oh, God.
It's got a good soundtrack if you like the music that's going on right now. John Legend is on it.
Yeah.
He was in a much better soundtrack movie.
So,
last year.
Oh, shut the fuck up. We'll say Django. Because I'm not listening to you and your La La Land bullshit. So, anyway... Sorry. Start a fire.
Yes, start a fire.
To this movie.
I wish
of this movie, excuse me. Sorry. Yeah, I don't have much else written down here, because that's the gist of the movie. That's it. That's the whole thing. Yeah. Oh, yeah, and then there's the whole, the Bella Heathcote storyline.
Yeah.
Where that really gets bad into the whole... Wow, what is up with this guy? And then he demonstrates something in this scene with Bella Heathcote, and it's just like, Well, this is just
weird.
Yeah, I don't like. I if I were to witness this, I don't know if I'd never want to see him again.
Oh yeah,
even if there's love in there somewhere, I don't know. That would freak the fuck out of me.
Well, yeah.
But no, it's the same thing with every single other thing he does in this movie. It's, oh no, that's very off-putting and weird, and you're really creepy and psychopathic and potentially skinning people alive when nobody's around. But that's okay. You're just messed up because of your childhood.
Yep.
You're just messed up because Kim Basinger fucked you.
So many excuses. And none of them have any water whatsoever.
Did he have those burns on his chest in the first movie?
I don't remember.
Because they're introducing that as something that's always been happening to him since he was a child. And they're there from, like, his childhood. But I honestly don't... I only saw the movie once 2 years ago, so I may be not sure. But I don't remember that. So
I don't either, really, off the top of my head.
Maybe. We'll give them credit and say maybe it was. But, I mean, if it wasn't, that's some damn continuity. That's continuity all gone wrong.
I'll give them credit for really liking Vin Diesel enough to put a Chronicles of Riddick poster in the room out of nowhere to make me laugh.
They must be the same studio or something. That's the only explanation.
That's something I can think of.
Okay, so, it's like all the pre-Amazing Spider-Man 2 Sony movies that had all the Spider-Man merchandise in them.
Yes.
It's like, I wonder what they're building towards. So, yeah. More of the same, only... That's more of the same. They think they're going farther. They think they're going dirtier. They think they're going more erotic.
Nope.
It really is more of the same. That's it. But I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of almost creeped out by the fan base, honestly. I don't...
Well, okay. The first thing they're gonna jump to, because I've actually had this drilled into my head numerous times. You never read the book. You didn't read the book. It's the argument I always get. You never read the book. No, I shouldn't have to read in order to enjoy a movie, and I shouldn't have to watch a movie in order to understand a book.
I think I had to say this in the first one, but I'll go ahead and say it again. Yeah, I am totally aware that people have kinks.
Right.
Believe me.
Yeah.
I'm aware. The way this movie portrays them and how the stuff that he does is supposed to be, like... His controllingness and his possessiveness is almost to be treated as if it's endearing. I don't know.
No.
Like, if it was treated as, okay, that's something that it's a way he's not really like and she's getting off on it, that I can get. But, I mean, like, that's actually how he is.
I mean, the fact that the word sadist finally got introduced this time?
Well, it took them fucking long enough.
No lie.
It's like, you don't understand. It's not that. I'm just a sadist.
Okay.
You have just come to this conclusion? Well, fuck, she's just coming to this conclusion? God. Okay. Alright, it only took you 4 hours of movie to come to that conclusion.
And it's gonna make like $60 million this weekend, too. It makes me sad.
Weird. Alright, let's move on. Let's move on to another kind of, wrecking pain on people. It doesn't stop yet.
Yes.
I don't think anybody's getting off in this movie, though.
They're getting off.
Except maybe the audience. Okay, yours is good, too.
Yes.
Our second movie is going to be John Wick, Chapter 2. The movie we all kind of hoped for, but we weren't confident we were going to be getting.
Yeah.
In October 2014 when we got the first one. But good on you, Keanu Reeves. You got this one out there. And I'm going to assume with all the world building in the first movie, and the way this one was executed as well as it is so quickly, that I'm guessing this idea was already...
I'd say so.
I'm assuming this movie already was created, at least in someone's mind, during the first movie. Because it's just too seamless otherwise. Maybe they are just that good. I'd buy that, honestly. No, we're continuing right where we left off, actually. And it kind of starts off, we get this Peter Stormare opening scene, where you kind of think the movie's basically going to go in the exact same direction that Taken 2 did. many other movies, but Taken 2 was coming to mind.
Right.
Where it's like, oh, well, you did this, and now I'm gonna get revenge and stuff like that. But then we kind of just stick that to only this opening scene, where it's, I love that very opening where we just hear the sound effects over the city, and then there's the image of a silent movie being projected onto a building, and the sound effects look like they're coming off the movie, but they are coming from the ground below, where John Wick is chasing a dude. I really love that opening. And then this whole thing where he's fucking dudes up, and they keep his face in the shadows, to where he's all mythical for a while Peter Somewhere is explaining the history to us again. And we're learning things as well. And we get, we revisit some of the same dialogue, like he's saying, all of this happened because, somebody killed a dog and stole a car, but it was John Wick's car. And the dude says the same line, the "oh" delivery. And I like that repeated dialogue, too, with, when he sees the cop later, he has the exact same dialogue he did in the first movie. But anyway, and then this opening scene breaks out, and it's like, this opening scene is like watching a demolition derby with a story.
That's good.
And then, when they get out of their cars, it's like a demolition derby with bodies. Like, the destruction does not stop when they get out of their cars. And this is all just the opening scene. And then it actually goes into something else, which I really like, because they really set up that very basic sequel plot. The plot you would expect. But then it's just like, no, we'll just wrap this up in an opening scene, and then we'll move on to something new. Which is a really great start. And yes, honestly, if there's one fault with this movie, it's that there's not a lot I can praise it for that I didn't already praise in the first movie. But they do go bigger. I do think you can't really say this one about the first movie because they came out the same year. And it's not just because I'm a huge fan of this movie, and it's mentioned a lot, but I mean, let's be real, that just shows how influential the movie is. There's a lot of the Raid 2 in this.
Oh my god, yes.
Like, I'm starting to wonder, like, just how much inspiration it took. I mean, it could be just them doing their own thing and not really thinking about making connotations, but I mean, if they took inspiration from the Raid 2, it's extremely apparent in a lot of scenes. And that's up to and including Ruby Rose will not leave us alone.
No.
I've seen, 5 sequels since 2017 began, and she's been in 3 of them. What is up with that?
Why is she everywhere now?
I don't know, but I don't like it.
I don't either. She's not very good.
But luckily she doesn't get any lines in this because she speaks in sign language.
Right.
Much like Hammer Girl and Baseball Batman.
Yeah, oh my God. She's also in the shark movie. Meg, the killer shark movie.
I don't know what that is.
It's a horror movie coming out next year.
Oh, okay.
And of course she's in Pitch Perfect 3. So
but
yeah,
anyway,
it continues.
Okay, but one of the things I did like in the first movie that definitely shows up here too is that John Wick is an unstoppable killing machine, but he's not totally, completely, 150% unstoppable. John Wick can take beatings, and certainly has, and certainly will. Because it would be very boring. I mean, it's great the way they build him up, like he's almost this inhuman machine.
Yeah, he knows a lot.
But it is nice to see those moments when he actually can be taken down. Because if he really was the machine they built him up to be, after a while the movie would probably get a little boring and tedious. So to see him get his takedowns every once in a while is a really good change of pace, especially for movies like this.
The Battle with the Sumo.
With these action heroes that never go down. But not only physically, I also like that there are moments in this movie when he's faced with these situations where he can't just up and kill everybody. I mean, he could, but he knows he'd die doing it, so he doesn't. And you can see what it does to him by Keanu's expressions, to where he's like, man, I so badly want to just kill everybody in the room and end this, but I know with the setup I cannot do that. Realistically, so we're just gonna hang back and just really wish we can, but we can't. I really like those moments and how it kind of grounds him as this indestructible hero he's built up as, even though we do still get to see that. And yeah, there are scenes where he gets to meet a match every once in a while. In this movie, it's common. And God, those that first fight with Common is amazing. I love that. I like Common in the movie as well, even when they're not fighting, because he's got it's these hitman characters. We've known that Common's a good actor ever since Smoking Aces,
Right.
and he has this way of he plays like these stoic characters with like a lot of wisdom, but kind of have this air of mystery about them. He plays those characters really well, and this is one of those. This is an infinitely better version of his character in Run All Night.
Yeah.
Like, how his character in Run All Night was set up, and then they didn't really do much with him. This would have been a great payoff to that. So that's really great. And then there is, like, the way some of these scenes are done, but it's, like, as far as the editing goes, it's not just the action. There's also a really great exercise in editing where, when he's preparing for everything, when he's going, he's like he gets the layouts and the blueprints of everything,
Right.
and then he's kind of choosing his wardrobe and his guns. He's mapping out the night he's going to have as he decides what he's going to wear and what he's going to shoot with. And it's all kind of cutting back and forth in this nice little collage before he goes into this. It's pretty much, then it goes into all the action from then on, with a little Lawrence Fishburne break in there too towards the end. But then there's also where the editing does come into play during the action scenes, and not just big scenes like the fight with Common or the climax, but this moment, which once again kind of felt like, say, the introduction of Earl and Basil. I mean, on the way to it does. But this scene when all the assassins are coming down on him, this is like 5 action scenes. This is like 5 different action scenes, but just all in one. Because as one comes down on him and then he fights them off, we get that, but we're cutting back and forth between all the times this happened as he was walking through the city. So we're getting 5 action scenes in one with the way this scene is edited. That was ingenious, because it could... I mean, when you think of a non-stop action movie, you think, one action set piece right after the other. So when you say, there's like 4 or 5 different scenes where he's fighting a different assassin or multiple assassins, you think it's like a video game. He fights one, then another, and then so on. But the way it's all happening at the same time is really cool, and a lot cleaner than that sound. That might sound a little jumbled and kind of, jumpy, but it works really well, and they just kind of mesh really well together. Now they all kind of come to a close at the same time too. The same way the other scene goes well, just not with him, killing people.
Now you've got me wanting John Wick in the Raid universe. Good God.
And I do like, this is another one of those movies, like I was saying with the Taken 2 thing, where every now, like for a while there, it's one of those cases where you kind of feel like you can see where the plot's going, but then something happens to make it have to go in a different direction. I kind of liked how they kept that up for a little bit before we finally realized, okay, this is the road we're on, and then we just get to watch it go. A lot of the returning characters, because the big thing was, the first movie had so much mystery around it behind who some of these characters were, like, Lance Reddick as the hotel guy, and John Leguizamo as the guy at the garage and stuff like that. Ian McShane and his whole deal. And it's, where do we go further with these characters, and what else do they do in this world? We don't really get to see much of what else they do, but we do get to kind of see a little farther into the world, and we break off into a few more things that take us deeper in there. So some of that exploration is done. I kind of missed David Patrick Kelly as the cleanup crew.
Yeah.
I was hoping they would make a return because everybody else pretty much did, but yeah. So there was certainly there's still a bit of a cleanup crew, but they're just done a little differently. So yes. And yeah, there are some new characters like Lawrence Fishburne. Lawrence Fishburne giving me Jeff Daniels and Looper vibes.
Yeah.
While doing his own thing with it. He has a couple of really nice line deliveries to the somebody get this man a gun, the way he just announces it with that big Lawrence Fishburne voice. And yes, the Neo Morpheus reunion is nice. So yes, I don't know. I think the novelty from the first one has worn off a little bit. But this one's still a marvel of action and very yes. They go bigger, they go more hardcore. Yeah, so like even though it does feel like they're stepping it up a lot, I do feel like there's something special in the first movie that doesn't quite bleed over into this. But this movie's still incredibly satisfying. So yeah. Alright, speaking of incredibly satisfying,
Yes.
are you ready to end this with the Lego Batman movie?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. I was a little cautious going into this. Right, that's probably putting it mildly. I was pretty cautious going into this at the start because I do really like the Lego movie, but I did think it was a bit overpraised. And then there was the character of Will Arnett doing Batman. I'm not a big Will Arnett fan by any means. And I thought it was going to be really, really milking it to do a whole movie based on that character we saw in the Lego movie. But weirdly enough, there seems to be no connection. Unless I really miss something, there is no connection mentioned between this and the Lego movie.
No, not at all.
Weirdly enough. And so I was I was getting prepared for this, and I was just thinking, and I wasn't necessarily being fair. I'm saying that. I wasn't being fair because all I kept thinking was, this movie's going to be so overpraised. It's going to be one of those cases where people think they're being clever by saying, ha ha ha, this one's better. This is a better Batman movie than Batman vs. Superman and Suicide Squad, etc. The Killing Joke even, like, oh, Galifianakis, he's so much better than Leto, haha, because he's doing a comedic version. I'm just expecting all this bullshit, but yeah. So anyway, I started getting a little more excited when I saw the cast list, and I was wondering exactly how all of this was going to come together.
Same here.
And so it begins, and you kind of think, especially since the Lego movie itself kind of already did this. And it's a very popular, especially with Lord Miller doing this regularly now. The whole self-referential thing is kind of become, like, if you do it the wrong way, it gets old really fast. Like, you gotta really make sure you're not wearing it down or beating a dead horse when you're self-referential. And this movie is self-referential through its entire runtime.
Yes.
Like, from the very beginning to the very end, it's pretty much nothing but self-referential. And if you think that's something that you're going to grow tired of, you're not going to have a lot of fun. However, I was won over, for the most part, probably about 90% of the time it was being self-referential. Or even taking stabs at other things.
Mm-hmm.
Starting with his whole narration of it's a black screen, and it's, all important movies start with a black screen. It's taking a stab at the whole everything must be dark and gritty thing that Nolan started. And the whole we're starting with a purple logo. It's exactly like the Dark Knight movie started. And like I said, from then on, it's pretty much nothing but in-jokes. With a bit of a new plot going on. They kind of merged the Superman world into the plot without Superman being in it very much. Sorry, Channing Tatum. you get a few good lines, but for the most part, Superman starts to set up the plot, but then it doesn't really much go into him after that. So, and I don't even know where to begin with this. There's a lot of very clever stuff, like I said. They're just really, really treading dangerous ground by how referential they went. But there's also stuff to where it might be, I think it just, like, I felt overwhelmed with references because there's a lot of stuff in there that maybe current audiences won't be as...
Yes. Oh my god, yes.
Paying as much attention to or registering. I say this with caution because it could go a number of ways. So when I say this, just remember I'm saying it with caution. When I saw this, I believed that this movie is likely every Batman fan's dream.
That's exactly the wording that I was given last night before we saw it.
Because, I mean, it's like, okay, here's the thing. Let me say this. There is the Nolan world.
Yep.
There is the Snyder world / Ayer world.
Yep.
There is the Burton world. There's the Schumacher world. There's the 66 world.
Yes.
And there's the black and white serials.
Yes.
All of them are canon for this movie.
Batman Beyond, the animated series, everything is touched on.
Yeah, of course.
Everything is touched on here.
Yeah, and it's all and not always in a small way.
No.
And sometimes they're a bit too blatant about it, because there's one time where they hit one and it was like, ha, and they tried to hit it again right after that, and it was like, slow down just a little bit. I appreciate the references, but maybe slow down a little bit. I'm, of course, talking about, they make reference to one world and then they make reference to another. I think that's where they thought they had to go.
Right.
To do one right after the other. But to me, it felt a little bit pushing it. Like when the Joker's talking about all of his plans that have failed. Or Batman's telling the Joker about all his plans that have failed. And he says, like that one with the 2 boats. And we're like, The Dark Knight, that's funny. But then right after that, with hardly a breath, he goes as far as to say, or the balloons during that parade where you played Prince music. It's like, that's a little specific. I appreciate the reference to the Burton movie, but I think you played your hand a little too soon and a little too specific, going right after the Dark Knight reference. But then there's stuff in there where it's still blatantly obvious, but it still works and actually fits in with what they're saying, like his modes inside his cavalry, seeing how extreme is he gonna go. He has a let's get nuts mode.
Yeah, he does.
And actually says the Keaton line in full. So that's, like I said, it really just depends on how you take a barrage of this, because it is non-stop.
Yeah,
with the
you
references.
are getting hit with it constantly.
But the thing is I think that'll be okay with a lot of audiences, because there's some stuff that's so in there.
Yes.
Like the I know it's still got kind of a people have long since accepted it for like a watching it ironically thing, or even though it was kind of like that on purpose a little bit. I'm not like, to us, the shark repellent bat spray,
that's the greatest thing ever.
To us, that is incredibly obvious.
Yes.
But to a regular audience, that might just be a joke in there.
Yeah, no one would really get that as much as a real fan of the series and the movie would totally dig.
Yeah, because the 66 movie did gain some popularity. It had like a resurgence there for a while. But with today's audiences, it's hard to tell. So, like, if you're... Yeah, it's really hard to gauge where other people would stand. Because I know exactly where I stand, and that's... I appreciate a lot of the references, but sometimes I felt like they could have toned it down a little bit. But like I said, that could just be me, because we're so aware of all the stuff they're referencing.
Oh, absolutely. When you bring Lewis Wilson into something like this, and half of the people that are watching the movie have no idea about the Batman serials, that's doing something right.
And there are times where Warner Brothers seems to be comfortable with taking shots at themselves.
Of course.
You may think you can admire Warner Brothers for that, but then you also wonder if maybe it's a little too easy. One that I did like, I was curious though, because this movie had to have been in production for a while.
Oh yeah, totally.
And Suicide Squad was only in August, but there are some references in there that feel like there are digs at Suicide Squad. But were those last minute? Or how did they get those in there?
I mean, it's possible.
Because there's one... Obviously, they make references to the Suicide Squad. That could be the comics Suicide Squad. It couldn't necessarily be the movie. But there's one joke that felt like they were taking a stab at Suicide Squad, the movie, and that is somebody who appears to be Killer Croc, who just looks like a normal crocodile,
right,
pops out of the water, plants a bomb, and just looks at the camera and goes, "I did something!" It's like, that's a shot at Suicide Squad, the movie. You know it is. And then there's some jokes in there that are just like, wow, that's in there. Batman referencing Fox Force 5.
I thought that was awesome.
The show within the show in Pulp Fiction. that was interesting. But then there's stuff where it's like, there are jokes that don't land, that aren't even references. They're just jokes the movie came up with that just sometimes don't land. Like, there's the scene, and it's not even necessarily just because they feel lifted from something else, but this example I'm going to give you does. And that is, the scene where Batman basically has to own up and apologize, but he can't bring himself to say that he's sorry, so he starts to, and then he just can't do it. That is straight out of the April Fool's Day episode of SpongeBob, where Squidward can't say sorry after he plays an evil prank on SpongeBob. They just kind of lifted it, like copied and pasted it pretty much. That kind of felt a little lazy, but yeah, there's still... There's and also there's some stuff where I'm not even sure if it's jokes in the movie or if it's references because it was so reference heavy. There's a joke in the movie where Batman feels really alone, so he goes into his own personal movie theater and watches Jerry Maguire. And while Jerry Maguire is a comedy for the most part, he's laughing at the really serious scene. That seems to be the joke in itself. But I can't help but wonder if it's also a vague reference to The Dark Knight, because...
Yeah, I'd say so.
It's the line when he says, "You complete me," which is what Heath Ledger said to Christian Bale. I don't know if it's a reference to The Dark Knight, or if the joke is just a standalone joke that he's laughing at the wrong parts of Jerry Maguire. It could be both. I don't know. This is another one of those movies where it's also so reference-heavy. Your eyes are constantly busy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this is one of those cases where almost every time a scene goes by, you feel like there might be a joke in the background you missed. You want to keep going back. Like I was saying, his collection of bombs. Mm-hmm. I feel like there had to have been a joke in there somewhere, but it cut away too fast. So there's all that kind of stuff, and they do reference the comic stories as well.
Yes.
Like just the relationship between Batman and the Joker in general. They play up as, in this movie, it's portrayed as like a normal relationship, only it's hate instead of love.
Yeah, Batman doesn't do ships.
Yeah, it's a long joke through the whole movie, and it's just a matter of how that goes for you as far as jokes that last an entire movie. What else do we have here? There are some really good lines too, that aren't just references and aren't just, taken from something else. Like, I really like the line when Robin's talking about when he's first in the Batcave, and he says, "Oh my God, Batman lives in Bruce Wayne's basement," and he's like, "No, Bruce Wayne lives in Batman's attic." I really love that line. And then they go as far as to what the plot sets up is that villains from other movies
oh my God.
can break into this story.
The Last Action Hero plot.
Yeah. And there's a lot of references in there, like we see, I don't want to say too much, because even if we do feel like we're saying too much, there's still so much in there.
There's a ton of Doctor Who. If you're a fan of Doctor Who, you'll love this movie.
Yeah, all of that was lost on me, because I don't do that. But,
I only know it because of other people.
But one of the things that come out of the portal is the gremlins.
Yes!
And there's the whole thing where, I like the references where nobody draws attention to it. Like when he's in his bat plane and the gremlins are on the wings.
Right.
It's like, I'm getting the sense that's the Twilight Zone.
Of course it is.
But nobody draws attention to it or points it out or anything.
Or The Simpsons, if you don't know the Twilight Zone.
Or Ace Ventura 2, for that matter.
Yeah, fair point.
If we're going that far. There's little things in there that are just little obvious jokes that I thought were kind of funny anyway, and just little cute moments, like when he breaks into the Justice League party, everybody's dancing, and way in the background, Cyborg's doing the robot. Just stuff like that. It's like, that's easy, but it's... I like it anyway. So yes, just anything... Like, if you're... also, another thing, that's the thing, you can dig and dig and dig into this movie and find jokes in there.
Oh, yeah.
To the point that you don't even know anymore if they're intentional or not. We were talking about the fact that Jermaine Clement is the voice of Sauron from... Yeah, that one.
That one.
And the thing is, okay, Jermaine's doing the voice of Sauron. Surely... Obviously, Jermaine's been doing a lot of voice work lately.
Oh, yeah.
That's, one of his major jobs. But at the same time, you're like... well, Brett's known for being in Lord of the Rings. Is that a reference in itself that they got Jermaine to do a Lord of the Rings voice?
The fact that Voldemort's in the movie and Ralph Fiennes is
Yes.
not playing him.
Eddie Izzard does the voice of Voldemort in a movie that Ralph Fiennes is in.
I can only imagine, like, they're in the booth basically doing VOs, and he just pats him on the back like, you're doing a good job.
But yeah, they do bring in their own stuff and their own emotional payoffs and stuff like that. There's a moment between Bruce and Alfred that may be more emotionally jarring than the Bruce and Alfred big scene in The Dark Knight Rises. Where it's like Alfred's really offended by something. And it's you have to kind of push away a laugh because you want to laugh immediately when you see a Lego face look sad, genuinely. But then when you realize the connection and what he's saying and the way Alfred's reacting, you're like, wow, that's a low blow, Batman. So there are actual, real emotional moments in there, but they don't hit as well as the comedy does.
Oh my gosh.
But I do like that it's not entirely references, but it's like 95% references. But if you're like really, really into the world, I get the feeling you're really gonna eat this up.
You just gotta point things out.
If you love anything and everything Batman, anything and everything Batman is in here.
Yes.
And yeah, some of the voice work,
the cast here.
There's some fun casting choices. I've gotta say, I'm actually kind of impressed. Not a Galifianakis fan.
Nope.
I think I've made that clear a number of times. But honestly, and I was kind of quick to dismiss it too, and I was like, that's a bad idea. But the more I thought about it, even before seeing the movie, I was like, well, if you are going to use this kind of cast for a movie like this, I mean, as far as the voice goes, Galifianakis is really not a bad choice. And he actually kind of sells it pretty well. I'm not going to go as far as to say, like, oh, he's better than Leto, haha, or whatever the fuck, but...
He played it a lot straighter than I thought he would, too, to be honest. I mean, he was more of a straight-laced Joker than he could have been. I mean, this could have been Will Ferrell if the Lego movie didn't exist. I have a feeling that Ferrell probably would have played the Joker.
And they do kind of take that plot, or at least they kind of start off with that plot, kind of like the Megamind plot.
Yeah, exactly.
Where the villain's like practically giving up and, Going Sane, was that the name of the book?
I believe so.
Where, like, the Joker thought he killed Batman, and then it, like, he just decided, fuck it. And
I have no reason to do anything anymore.
But yeah, so it kind of goes into that a little bit, but it's still kind of doing its own thing, just really buried under references everywhere. But it's still certainly charming enough and fun enough and funny enough, to where it still really does work.
I love this voice cast. I didn't think I would, but my god, it...
Yeah, what do we have? We had, Rosario Dawson was Barbara Gordon. Hector Elizondo was Jim Gordon.
Yep.
Jenny Slate was Harley Quinn.
Conan. The Smilex on the across her shirt the whole time. Thought that was done well.
Conan was the Riddler.
Yeah, that made me very happy. I wish there would have been more Conan in this movie.
Obviously, some people... We were saying there were no connection to the Lego movie. There is... like, Channing Tatum still plays Superman and Jonah Hill still plays the Green Lantern.
Right.
That's pretty much the closest we get to a Lego movie connection. They don't even reference the other characters that he ran into during those adventures.
Billy D. Williams.
Yes.
That makes me so
the
happy.
Most amazing thing ever.
It's great. He finally gets to do it.
All these years, 28 years later, Billy D. Williams gets to follow up his portrayal of Harvey Dent and play Two-Face. It's only a few lines, but it's just that exists. It feels like there's such a closure to something that was left open.
I know.
It's like we have a movie where Billy D. Williams plays Two-Face, and I think that honestly is beautiful.
because you had Burton's Two-Face, and then you had the Burton version of the Penguin too. Mm-hmm. I thought they'd go with the '60s Penguin, but they went with the DeVito Penguin. You can see the duck roll.
Oh
my god, yeah, you can. I'm a big Robin mark, and a lot of people know that about me. This actually covers the Robin backstory quite well, and it makes it real fun too. A lot better than Chris O'Donnell.
I figured you just liked the fact that he was a punchline for a while there, but ultimately in the long run, it's a modern Batman movie that treats Robin with respect.
You know
I
it.
feel like that's what you like.
That's
about
exactly right. And plus, obviously, I'm a big fan of the 60s TV series. And to see Egghead and Clock King and King Tut all on the screen, I was like, oh my god,
They even
amazing.
take like those people that you can't believe exist that are from the really old comics issues. To the point that Galifianakis even says, really, Google it there.
And that's a shoot. It really is. That's what makes it
like,
even
they
better.
really went deep with this one.
I mean, it made me very happy to be a Batman fan watching this movie. And definitely am not the only one saying that.
It really depends on where you fall
going
in on how you're going to feel about this movie. But yeah, if you're just into all the aspects of it, this is definitely your thing. So yeah, there we go.
That's our show for today. Tomorrow, I think Game & Fash might be returning, so I guess we'll see. Sunday Versus is coming up. So obviously we got some sort of holiday coming up on Tuesday. We got a Versus that kind of ties into that somewhat. So it would be very romantic.
Yes, it's getting very romantic.
Or very romantic. Next week is actually going to be A Cure for Wellness, which is something that we keep forgetting about, but it's something that I'm really interested to see how it's actually going to work.
The only thing I know about it is that it's Gore Verbinski's new movie. I don't even know what it's about.
2 hours and 40 minutes.
Well, that's with trailers though, right?
Yeah, let's hope.
So I'm going to get to discover what that movie's even about the first time I lay eyes on it.
Along with Fist Fight, which looks horrible, and The Great Wall. Matt Damon's new movie that if he wasn't in it, probably wouldn't be a mainstream film. I guess we'll see.
I thought he was the only person in it. We passed the wall poster today in the hallway.
Right.
I learned Willem Dafoe was in it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of snake bitten with me right now. Of course.
Antichrist was 8 years ago this year.
I hate that movie.
Wow.
Anyway, that being said, before we end star mounts, do you even 50?
1.5.
That half is very generous.
I know. But I didn't feel like... I wasn't like seething with hatred. I was just confused.
John Wick Chapter 2?
3.
And the Lego Batman movie.
3.
All right. So follow along on the network this weekend if you're a wrestling fan with the Elimination Chamber podcast as soon as the pay-per-view concludes on Sunday. The Monday show right after Raw is over, and the Wednesday show at 9 p.m. Of course, this Sunday is the BAFTAs. So that video is up here if you want to take a gander at what me, AJ, and Ashley said was going to win the BAFTAs. And coming next week, we're going to be doing our Spirit Award predictions and our Oscar predictions. So that being said, I want to thank you guys and girls out there for watching. AJ, any parting words?
That's it.